So, if you come to me and you ask me, what do I need to do in order to become a pilot? There are several different ways of doing this, and none of them are wrong. None of them are more right or wrong than the other. It depends on you and your circumstances. So the first thing that I tell everyone is, before you pay a single euro for your flight training, make sure that you do some kind of suitability test, right? And it needs to be a proper suitability test. Every reputable flight school is going to offer that to you. And the reason this is so important is because there are certain personality types that just should not be pilots, right? They might be excellent in other occupations, most of them are, but certain personality traits, like not being able to work well under stress, for example, those are things that is very hard to get rid of. It's part of your personality, part of who you are. And if you have such a personality trait, you need to find that out before you start your training. Because the only thing that is worse than doing that suitability test and being told that you're not suitable is to hear exactly the same thing once you've paid 100,000 euros to become a pilot, right? So that's something that I recommend to anyone. And listen to it when you get it. There are certain parts of your personality that you can improve. Well, in that case, if you hear that, take a year or so, improve on it, improve on your math skills, or whatever it might be. But anyway, listen to that. Now, once you have done that, and they say, yep, fine, that should go well for you. Now it's a matter of, what's your financial situation? Are there any government-sponsored programs or airline-sponsored programs available to you in your country or in the area that you are going to work? Right. Look at that first. If there are, apply to them. You know, that's an easy choice. If it's not, and you're going to have to pay for your training, well, then it's a matter of, is it really important for you to do this training quickly, to get into the industry quickly, or can you let it take a while? Because if you want to do it quickly, you go through the integrated way, right? So that is the quickest, most comprehensive way, and you will be done in maybe 18 months to 2 years, right? With all of your licenses ready to start applying for airlines. Now I'm talking in Europe here. In America, you're going to have to also add on a few hours on top of that. But it's also going to cost you a lot of money, because these integrated training programs are generally fairly expensive. But if that's not available to you, if you can't fork out that amount of money immediately, well, then you have the modular route. The modular route is going to take you longer, but you also might be able to work while you're doing it, which means that you can keep your financial burden down. You can fly as much as your income allows you to. That's going to, of course, make it, take longer, but you're also going to, you're going to get more life experience, and it's good. It's not all bad. What you have to do, though, is some due diligence. Well, you're going to have to do that if you do integrated as well. But make sure that you go through a reputable, good flight school when you're doing this, and maybe don't go for the cheapest one you find. That's very important, because I've seen many stories of people who have signed up for the very cheapest course they can find, and then halfway through the training, their school goes bankrupt, takes all their money, and disappears. You don't want that to happen to you, right? So do proper due diligence before you do anything like this. So then that's what I would say. Then start choosing. Once you're chosen, you have to go through with it. And then when you're working through your training, remember that in any case, if you're self-sponsoring, you're going to feel like you are using up a lot of money. And at the very end of your training comes something called an MCC course, right? The MCC course is multi-crew coordination. It's the way that we work in a real airline cockpit. 2 pilots, how we read checklists, how we check each other, things like that. This is something that you can either do very cheap or very expensive. And of course, the temptation will always be to try to do it fairly cheap at the end, because you've spent so much money. Don't do that, right? This is what crowns your training. In fact, up until that point, you've just gotten your licenses, which is basically just rubber stamping that you're allowed to apply for a job. What's actually going to give you the job is how you do your interview and your simulator assessment at the airline that you're applying to. And that's going to be all down to how good your MCC course was. So do not cheap out on your MCC course. Instead, do something more cheap during your initial training. It has to be good, it has to be safe, but spend the extra money at the very end, because that's what's going to give you the skills to get through the assessment at the end, right? So do an APS MCC course. That's what I would recommend anyone. That's going to give you the best chance of getting a job.